So before we get to Lawrence, let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Memorial like no other. The life of Charlie Kirk, investigation of the assassination, and where Turning Point turns from here. We'll discuss it all.
Number 2.
I wasn't in control. It wasn't my fault. It was somebody else. I'm like, then who's in control? If you want to step into the political arena, you stand on your own 2 feet, you make tough decisions, and you own them, and you have a vision and a strategy, and I don't think it came through in this book.
That is a former Bernie Sanders operative who is now a Democratic operative who says this about Kamala Harris. Blast her party, blast her after she blasts her party. The mayor's race divides the Democratic Party too. Why do the Dems seem so divided while being out of power?
Number 1.
Fox News has learned from a senior Trump administration official that Hamas has drafted a personal letter to President Trump asking him to guarantee a 60-day pause in the fighting in exchange for immediately releasing half of the hostages.
That was Trey Yingst in his original reporting right from Israel. Israel is in the crosshairs, though, as the world comes to town. The U.S. firmly on their side. Everyone seems to be, including our allies, recognizing a Palestinian state. But where and what does it mean? Since when do you abandon the only democracy in the Middle East? And Lawrence, let's start from there. I mean, first off, immediately people say, well, who cares if France, the UK, Australia, Portugal, other Western countries join about another 140 in recognizing a Palestinian state? It's a non-starter, but it does complicate things internationally, diplomatically for Israel.
In the UN, as well as when you look at the president and the deals, the peace treaties that he's trying to accomplish all over the world, it's caving. And Brian, I continue to make the point is, who is the government then? If we're going to acknowledge them as a state, then who is the government? Hamas.
So we watched Prime Minister Starmer to answer Peter Doocy. He said, why you recognize the Palestinian state? He goes, first off, we don't recognize Hamas. Well, do you understand what we're dealing with here? Do you been paying attention at all? Can you get out of your think tank into the real world? So this is what they're saying. Here are the consequences. That if it provides a basis for a complete revision of bilateral relations with Israel, a country that recognizes Palestine has to review agreements with Israel to make sure they do not violate its obligations to the Palestinian state. This would include political, territorial integrity, as well as economic, cultural, social, and civil relations. So now all of a sudden you're going to be dealing with them like they're a true state when it was pretty clear they're not a state. They were created really in the 1950s.
Yeah, but also, Brian, who's going to manage the death and destruction there? I mean, you got to ask yourself a question. Why don't any of the neighbors want to take their people? It's because they're chaotic. Yeah. There's a lot of radicals there, and they don't want them stirring up trouble. Jordan doesn't want it. Saudi Arabia doesn't want it. Egypt doesn't want it. So, I mean, if you guys are going to acknowledge them, are you going to be there to make sure that they don't invade the border again and we have another October 7th?
Well, no, they want to keep that border closed in Egypt, and they don't want to let anyone into to Jordan. So here's the letter, and you tell me if this deal is a non-starter or a starter. Trey says that they are going past Netanyahu to Qatar in order to get a direct letter to Trump. Listen to his story, cut 25.
Fox News has learned from a senior Trump administration official and a second source directly involved in the negotiations that Hamas has drafted a personal letter to President Trump asking him to guarantee a 60-day pause in the fighting in exchange for immediately releasing half of the hostages being held inside Gaza. We understand this letter is currently with the Qataris and is expected to be delivered to the president this week. Remember, there are still 48 hostages being held by the terror group inside the Gaza Strip. It's estimated around 20 are believed to be alive. And the negotiations were moving forward. But earlier this month, the Israelis launched airstrikes against Hamas inside the Qatari capital of Doha. They have been stalled ever since. But officials hope this letter will help to jumpstart the conversations and ultimately get President Trump directly involved to try and reach an agreement to get the hostages home and end this war.
Your thoughts?
First of all, the president is already directly involved. I think the deal is a non-starter. When I see, first of all, second of all, Hamas hasn't honored the past deals. They haven't done what they were supposed to do with the basketball. Why would we give them another way to regroup and reshape again? I think it starts where the president said the last time, release all of the hostages first. No more of these one-offs, half here, a quarter of the hostages. You have to release them all. Then we can talk about other things.
So we'll talk about that as it progresses, because at the UN, that's going to be the story today.
Of course.
Lawrence, I also want to talk about the great coverage yesterday with Kayleigh McEnany on the memorial that lasted between 5 and 6 hours. I was amazed. It just went perfectly. From the size of the crowds, the behavior, no violence. The overflow went to a nearby arena. The others just stand on the outside with the big screens. They estimate, the New York Post, 200,000 people showed up. I mean, this is free, I got it, but no one had any guaranteed seats. They showed up anyway. And notice no violence. Before we get into some of the sound, your thoughts?
Well, thanks, Brad. But I am more impressed how uplifting it was. I mean, conservatives have every reason to be upset right now. And the spirituality that was there, the return to God, to faith, the continuation of the movement, it was not depressing at all. It was very uplifting. And I think that says a lot about the movement. As Erica Kirk said, there was no violence.
Right. But yet some people are not in support. Tone deaf, and I think just unbelievably ignorant about who he was and what were they doing. I mean, think about the squad in particular. All of them sounded off, it seems, against Charlie Kirk. Cut 10.
We don't have to agree with every single word, but I do believe he was a reprehensible, hateful man. Like, that is my view of the words that he has said about every single identity that I belong to. He didn't believe that we should have equal access to anything. He also just didn't even believe I could be smart enough. I could have thoughts that could be equal to a white man. Where are we missing this conversation about who this man was and the things that he said?
That's not true. That's not true.
You think he ever would say that?
No, he did not say that. And you heard it yesterday with all of the tales and the stories of Charlie. And I just think it's very evil and disgusting to say that when the man was assassinated for what he believed in and he's not alive to defend himself.
And he would have definitely engaged on that. He would have welcomed that approach. But AOC was even worse. Cut 11.
We should be clear about who Charlie Kirk was. A man who believed that the Civil Rights Act that granted Black Americans the right to vote was a mistake. Who, after the violent attack on Paul Pelosi, claimed that, quote, some amazing patriot, unquote, should bail out his brutal assailant. And accused Jews of controlling, quote, not just the colleges, it's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it, unquote. His rhetoric and belief.
This
is at this point it's defamation.
Right.
Defamation. He was close. Netanyahu, the Jewish state. Do you think Netanyahu would be supporting Charlie Kirk if he was anti-Jewish?
But there's a sense in the podcast world with certain people pointing out that he was threatened by Ken Ackman out in the Hamptons, saying if you don't change your tune, you're going to basically regret it. And he changed his tune on Israel. That's what people are saying, but that's just not true.
And there's people that was at those meetings to that point, because, Brian, you're right. The conspiracies that are going on, even before he was even put into the ground, were just not true. The people who were at those meetings said that didn't take place. And Erica Kirk apparently is going to have to respond to some of these conspiracies on his show today.
Yeah. And by the way, this one you picked up too. Jonathan Karl on ABC was in the crosshairs of Donald Trump this week. He hosted, pointed out some things I thought were positive and very level-headed about Charlie Kirk. But he also added this, cut 12.
The 31-year-old activist's murder shocked the nation, and it was condemned by sensible and compassionate people in and out of politics and across the political spectrum. It has also been senselessly celebrated by some, a small minority who didn't like what Kirk stood for and thought it was somehow therefore justified. Celebrating or excusing violence is abhorrent. The murder of Charlie Kirk was not a political act. It was a gruesome crime. His alleged killer now faces the death penalty. Our thoughts this morning are with the Kirk family, especially his 2 young children who will now grow up without their father.
Not a political act.
Excuse me, sir. It was both. It was a gruesome murder and a political assassination. He was doing so well, but he couldn't just state the obvious. We have gotten an investigation. We knew what the assassin inspirations were. His parents have been vocal about the radicalization and things that were taking place. His cousins, people at the dinner table with him. We've seen text messages as well. He said why he did it. We don't have to speculate about this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he said that it was hated something that can't be discussed.
Yeah.
He wanted to kill him instead. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more. We have to talk about Kamala Harris's book. I thought it was going to be in and out, done, just to something to launch her relaunch her political career. I think it's something different. But I do think she still wants to run.
Charlie and I were united in purpose. His passion was my passion, and now his mission is my mission. Everything that Turning Point USA built through Charlie's vision and hard work, we will make 10 times greater through the power of his memory.
So that was Erica yesterday. She's going to be on the podcast today, and then she's probably going to be in the University of Minnesota tonight. Lawrence, we were just playing some of the cuts, the ridiculous way that they're characterizing Charlie Kirk with the squad and others. I just think they got to be embarrassed. At some point, they have to have a staffer that go, there were 200,000 people that showed up. People don't show up for racists, sexist. They don't show up for people that are good at being politicians.
That's right.
In fact, you didn't hear Democrat or Republican at all.
No, it was about values, and it was a return to faith. I just wish people would do me a favor. And this is not just for Charlie, but all the people in the public sphere. Don't just watch the clips. Watch the full context. A lot of the things that they're saying that Charlie said are being completely taken out of proportion, not in the full context of what he's saying. And when you do that, you manipulate certain words. It's straight up defamation. He enjoyed the back and forth.
Right. I want to talk about Kamala Harris. She has this book coming out, and I'm sure it's going to sell now. But the question is, did she write it just to set the record straight in the way she saw it, or did she write it to help launch a presidential campaign? Because a lot of experts just can't figure it out. I'm watching everybody over the weekend because she blows up everybody. She tells Governor Whitmer, earns a mention for her caution and hesitancy to step out on her behalf. Mark Kelly, he praises him as magnetic, but frets that he had not yet had an blank moment in his political career. She feared his military service would be weaponized. Pete Buttigieg would have named him my pick if he wasn't gay. Governor Josh Shapiro wanted to know how many bedrooms were in the vice presidential residence and seemed too ambitious. Does this seem like something for somebody who is looking to take on a debate stage full of potential rivals?
No. I will say this. I think this is her hope. It's quite delusional. I'm not saying I believe this, Brian, but I think her hope is to burn down the Democratic Party and burn down her opponents as well. And she thinks that she's going to rise with the ashes when it's all done. I don't think it's going to go that way. I think her political career is over.
I thought it was over anyway, and she does not have any juice around her. We've seen it before.
She didn't have him before.
I mean, like, did you say to yourself, Tim Kaine, I can't wait for him to run after Hillary Clinton lost, right? Of course, John Edwards. Did you go after John Kerry lost? You go, if you only can't wait for John Edwards. Of course, they ran it. It was a non-starter. David Axelrod, kind of like Karl Rove on the right. He'll call it like he sees it. He says, if there's a political strategy here, it's a bad one. There's an awful lot of grievance and finger-pointing that really doesn't serve a political agenda.
Right. Well, it doesn't serve a political agenda. She takes no accountability as well. She never says, I made a terrible decision when I did this. And she blames the whole campaign when she's in charge of the campaign. So if you can't run a political operation, then how can you be the president of the United States?
Now, think about this. So you got Kamala Harris trying to be the standard, blowing everything up. Then you have, on the Democratic side, the leadership doesn't know what to do with the New York City mayor candidate. Schumer goes, I'm still studying. What are you studying? Don't ask me again. Keem Jeffries, I'm in talks. What are you talking about? Just name it. I have a Democratic Party leader. I'm not endorsing him. Really? You're not endorsing him? Okay, that's fine. Gillibrand, I'm not endorsing him.
Yeah.
But who is? I don't know. I mean, you just have some leaders like Elizabeth Warren goes to endorse him. Bernie Sanders loves him. Right. AOC sponsors him.
Right.
That's a divide by definition of what I just said. Did I even mention a Republican?
They lack courage. Courage. Say whatever you want to say about the Never Trumpers and everything, and I think they're wrong a lot to Liz Cheney. But at least they were willing to blow up their political career for what they believed in. Yeah. I disagree with them.
Right.
But at least they took the gamble and said, I'll do it. The Democrats don't have that. Is there any leader that will speak with moral clarity?
Senator Fetterman?
I mean, exactly. But he's in a moderate state, and he's willing to do it. From that standpoint, Chuck Schumer has the biggest out. He can say, look, I'm a Jewish American. What he's against my people. I can't stand with that. That's all he has to say. On that issue alone, people can say, okay, I get it.
He wrote a book about anti-Semitism. Yeah, right. But yet he still doesn't know if he should endorse an anti-Semitic candidate.
Right.
Why can't Dana Bash ask him that? I mean, that's just it. Why can't you ask him? You just wrote a book about anti-Semitism. Look at this quote, what he said about Jews. Look at what he said about globalized intifada.
They are afraid of the mob. And the mob are the young people, the socialists, the people that are screaming in the middle of the street like little jihadis from the river to the sea, globalized the intifada. And Mandami, those are his people. And those are the people that host all the parties, that show up to all of the rallies, and the anchors and the establishment are afraid of it.
But Shapiro, Bashir, and others that want to be moderates are not going to subscribe to that, and they think they'll be successful. I'm not sure. Lawrence, thanks so much. Great job last night.
Appreciate you.
Yesterday, I should say. Back in a moment with Mollie Hemingway. You listen to the Brian Kilmeade Show.
And I want all of you to know, while Charlie died far too early, he was also ready to die. There was nothing he was putting off. There was nothing that was too hard or too painful, or nothing that he just felt like he didn't want to do it. He left this world without regrets. He did 100% of what he could every day. But I want you to know something. Charlie died with incomplete work, but not with unfinished business.
That is a fantastic line, and it's so accurate. Mollie Hemingway in studio, fresh off taking a red eye from the memorial. Fox News contributor, editor over the Federalist. Mollie, your takeaway from being there?
In a lifetime experience. It was just amazing to be there with so many people. I hadn't really ever been in that size of a crowd before, and to have just hour after hour of all sorts of different people, whether they were pastors or politicians, testifying to what they were saying was the most important thing in the world, which was their faith in Jesus Christ. It was a really healing event. I mean, it's just even like I didn't see a single squabble or scuffle. Everyone was so nice and generous with everything, and it was an unbelievable feeling to be there in that stadium.
It's interesting. You didn't hear like Republican or votes. You didn't hear anything about elections. You know, hey, he did this, and he played a big role. You just talk about what type of person he was and what he tried to do. He tried to persuade people. And I also thought in the end, they put together this event, which how many people would you say?
I mean, I'm not a crowd counter, but there were so many people outside by the time I got in, and when I got in, it was pretty full. So I don't even...
70,000 on the inside.
Yeah.
And then you had another 8,000 in arena. And
then but probably a lot of people who just didn't get in and went home too.
So if you traveled, you'd probably try to stay somewhere in the vicinity. So you have all these people show up. They didn't know what exactly to expect. Now, if you're Turning Point USA, you got to do the impossible. You got to say to yourself, okay, these last 10 days have been horrific, but our program is now quadrupled or grown 10 times the size. You have 70,000 plus applications for chapters. The business part, the management part comes in. How do you harness this momentum?
I don't know how they did this in such a short period of time. I mean, a massive event, a level 1 security event, dignitaries and people coming in from all over, and it went so well, and it was so well done. It was a testament to that turning point team. And I mean, if you know them, Charlie wasn't the only one there who was doing really good work. But I also liked that they didn't, this is an organization that's a nonprofit that's focused on civics education. They've got a political action side also that was doing so much work in recent elections in terms of ballot chase. But it's just the thing that came through more than anything is, yes, Charlie was assassinated for his political views, but he was also martyred for being a Christian. And that martyrdom was front and center of the whole event. And so I don't know how they dealt with their grieving and putting on that event, but they did. And it's a real testament to that organization.
So I asked Andrew Colvett last night on my show, One Nation, about what has to happen now. Cut 8.
Everybody has to play their own role the way that they are wired, right? And so Erica is going to be her own type of CEO. But I will tell you, Brian, she is an amazing, amazing human. I mean, everybody already knows this from watching her speak and the strength that she gathered, in the most incredible of circumstances, and with tragedy all around us. She found the strength to address a grieving nation that really needed to hear from her. And I will just say that same strength that she exhibited on that stage tonight and on the Friday after Charlie was assassinated, she has that innately in her.
So, and you'll have to do that. Tonight's going to be at the University of Minnesota. They're going to keep moving,
Well, it was interesting. I was sitting right behind the TPUSA staff, and while they were happy about
on the floor?
Yeah, they were happy about everyone being there. But when Erica spoke, I mean, they were on their feet. They were cheering. They clearly love her and are willing to follow her wherever she leads. But also, the board seems very impressed with her. And you can just see, I mean, that speech, the strength emanating from that woman at that time was, her during the memorial was just amazing to witness. And also that moment where President Trump hugs her and she burrows into his shoulder was also another, just a visual that lingers with you.
So I thought about Hulk Hogan. Do you remember Hulk Hogan came out and said, I've been friends with Trump for a while. I stay out of the political process. I didn't want to alienate people that didn't like Trump. And then after Trump almost got killed, he called him up and goes, I'm out. You need me? And he said, yeah, I need you. Start campaigning for me. Goes to Madison Square Garden, goes to the RNC, becomes a outward Trump supporter. How many people do you think are on college campuses right now who are leaning conservative, thought this is my values, I don't like some of this wokeness all around me, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and just graduate? How many people you think saw that and said, I'm going to come out. I'm going to go out and start speaking my mind?
So as it is said, courage is contagious. If you see someone being courageous, and with Charlie to the point of assassination, he knew he was under constant security threat. That was one of the interesting things. I thought Don Trump Jr.'s speech was really interesting, really well done. And he talks about how when he started doing events with Charlie, they'd be on campuses and they would face very serious threats. And Charlie would say, we're still going forward. When you see someone else do that, you think, you know what? I have been cowering in silence while my friends and family say things I know not to be true. And look at what that's gotten us in this country. So many normal people who just want to live in a place where truth is spoken, such as men can't become women, or, America is a great country and you shouldn't hate it. These basic truths that people have been bullied into silence over. I think what you're seeing in this moment is a lot of people saying, I was wrong to be cowardly in that moment. I'm not going to do it anymore. A lot of discussion yesterday about courage as a choice, and all you have to do is just choose to do it. It doesn't require skill or talent. As Charlie said, you just do it. And so you can hear it in the zeitgeist, but people are definitely saying they want to push back against some of this leftist totalitarian insanity that the country has been subjected
And now I'm
to.
not sure who the mainstream Democrat is, besides guys like Harold Ford and Senator Fetterman. But the one who gets most of the heat is the squad and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She did not stop yesterday. I'm sure you were traveling or you were at the memorial. Here's a little of what she said when they say, basically, is it time to turn back the rhetoric a little bit? Here's cut 16.
I think that my responsibility is to be transparent and to be honest. And the reality is that we are living in a time in which this administration and this regime is not interested in making sure that people understand history. We need to understand why they are so problematic. And so I am using that language because it is accurate language. When we see the consolidation of power, when we see them trying to chill speech of jokesters, when we're seeing all of this, that is a playbook out of Hitler, and I won't deny it. Like, these are the facts.
Do you think she's helping?
I think most normal people say when someone is assassinated, in part because they believed some pretty crazed left-wing rhetoric about Charlie that was a lie, and they see this type of response, it's just gross. It's horrific. Most normal people are going to react negatively to that. I think the Democrats who were smarter were, as you mentioned, Senator Fetterman, who just had nice things to say about Charlie. Probably did not agree with him on much, if anything, but was able to be a decent human being in a moment when the entire country, except for that fringe on the left that's celebrating, the vast majority of people are mourning. Everyone knows an assassination of a political opponent is a breakdown of society that is, President Trump had a line about how the bullet was aimed at Charlie, but it was against everyone in America. And that's because we do believe we should reason together. We should come to, we should make decisions based on debate. And this was an attack on that fundamental principle we have.
So do you know that Elvis's death in 1977 drew an estimated 80,000, 14,000 for Muhammad Ali in Louisville? 1968, 2 massive services were held for Martin Luther King Jr., one in Atlanta and the other at Morehouse College. Total 150,000 people, which is impressive. But this likely surpassed it. And this guy's 31 years old. I mean, it was a national figure to people who were really astute or happen to be coming up in college. I just noticed that every 18-year-old or 20-year-old I talked to go, oh, yeah, we heard of Charlie Kirk. This was like a quiet fame and notoriety.
I think, among young people in particular, just having someone bold enough to speak back against some of this insanity that college students are subjected to, or even high school students. I was struck that it was the member of my family who is the least political who was most devastated by Charlie's assassination, because she liked to watch his videos about how he would try to reason with people with different beliefs, and she would watch them and try to follow them so that she could speak that way to her friends. And she's not very political. Mm-hmm. And so you think about how many people were learning from that. I mean, that's why what was done in assassinating Charlie really was a major, major blow against the conservative movement. I mean, he's irreplaceable. It's really bad. But also, if hundreds of thousands or even millions of people respond by deciding to fight for America in their vocations, it will not be for naught.
I mean, just think about it. On a much lesser note, remember after Trump wins the election in 2016, they go, well, how did he do it? Well, Drudge was a conservative publication, #1 website. Somehow Drudge got bought by people that make it look like the Huffington Post now. And then the NRA, unbelievably strong organization that President Trump totally was embraced by Trump and vice versa. One of the first things that was done is they went after and sued the NRA and just totally destabilized it. Just like after the Tea Party was so strong against Obama in destroying him in the midterm elections, by the time he runs for re-election, the Tea Party's been sued into oblivion. So this is their way. Now, this is much bigger. But how do you stop them? This is the only way to stop them, to kill them.
Not just sued into oblivion. In the case of the Tea Party, you had a concerted effort by the IRS under Barack Obama to not certify any of the political groups that were coming up out of the Tea Party just for political gain. I mean, that's something that happened. We've seen lawfare, we've seen attacks, we've now seen assassination, but a lot of that was allowed by, so many people in the media decided to make it seem like if you were Republican or voted Republican, you were not fit for polite society. You had members of Congress saying, if you know a Republican, don't let them eat dinner in peace. And this type of fight against what they called normalization, there's a straight line from that into political violence. And people did not do enough to fight back, including in the conservative establishment or the Republican establishment. They kind of just acted like it was okay to treat their voters like second-class citizens. And that cannot happen in the future if you want to have a country. And I think a lot of people realize that.
And look at what they went after Trump. They go, we're going to destroy this guy. We might even put him in jail or house arrest. And then we're going to take all his assets. Remember, Letitia James thought she'd be selling off Trump Tower, sitting in Trump Tower, selling it off. If it wasn't for Trump walking through fire.
They took a battle to remove him from the ballot to the Supreme Court. Yes. I mean, that's just so un-American. And actually that was kind of what was interesting. You were pointing out how many people were there and how just what a large crowd. It wasn't an overtly political thing, which is funny because you had cabinet secretaries, the vice president, the president himself, but there was this theme of Americans are coming together. And this small fringe minority on the left has had way too much power and they cannot destroy the country. So it was kind of like Americans, even if not everybody agrees politically, versus the people who want to destroy America.
And I noticed I flipped channels just to have a perspective, helps me with this show and everything else. So I flipped. They did very few cutaways on CNN, but at least they covered it. Fox was brilliant. Yeah, you always had somebody in the other box along with the podium. It was fantastically produced. Do you know what MSNBC had? One single shot didn't even look like it was white balanced. And it looked off key. It looked, so like, why bother? Audio wasn't that good. And then they quickly went back to a panel. They talked about it for 2 minutes and then they just changed gears. I just think that that's terrible. If I'm a news director there, I don't care what the message is. Like, what's going on here?
When you're actually trying to get people to actively turn away from your channel because you're not producing it well. But it was interesting. There were so many media there. I mean, it was a massive area for media. And I met someone who was with Norwegian television, and he was saying that they streamed the rally on their television station channel in Norway. I mean, this is a global event. So if Norwegian television is broadcasting the rally in real time, MSNBC could do it too.
I want to get you, before you go, real quick, weigh in on Kamala Harris. What if you know of the book on the excerpts? Is she looking to relaunch her political career or destroy it?
I don't know if it's so funny. She's one of those people who makes a really good impression at first blush, and then almost immediately it kind of goes away. And so she made a big flash when she was in the Senate. She had that initial run for president where she ended up not getting a single primary vote. I don't know if she has the best instincts. But also what I keep on picking up in all of the excerpts they've released thus far is she's unwilling to accept personal responsibility for how bad she is at running for office or
refusing to do interviews and for the longest time.
It's always everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
Joe Biden did this. And I mean, of all people in the world, she should have been the leader to stand up and say, the president actually is not fit to serve right now.
David Axelrod said, if there's a political strategy here, it's a bad one. He said there's an awful lot of grievances and finger pointing that really doesn't serve a political agenda. I do believe that she thinks this will help her because she's going to be competing against Shapiro. She's going to be competing against, who knows, Governor Walz, but not real, Mark Kelly, Governor Whitmer, Gavin Newsom. And she took little shots at them right there. And I think that she knows she's going to have to brawl before she gets to the finals. And I think that, I'm not saying I agree with it, but there's no way, she has nothing else to do.
Yeah, she may be trying to preserve her options. Also, she might be looking for, she doesn't have the work ethic that's required to be
Is that crazy?
A political campaigner. So maybe she's just trying to have a role, an elder stateswoman role in the party or something where she can make money doing speeches or other stuff. And that's actually what I was just thinking. Joe Biden was out recently saying he's frustrated that nobody's paying him $500,000 per speech, like happens for a lot of Democrat politicians. And I'm like, I think the reason why is because nobody is confident he could make it through a speech.
Exactly.
Much less how unfavorable he is to many people right now.
Mollie Hemingway, thanks so much for your perspective on the event. And when we're going to see you again? Are you going to be on Outnumbered?
Outnumbered here in a little bit.
That's all you can ask. At noon Eastern here on the Fox News Channel. Don't move. Let's bring in Michael Larosa now. He's a former Biden official and a Democratic insider. Michael, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brian.
Hey, Michael, I saw that Kamala Harris book, they just said, forget the embargo. Just let everybody start taking excerpts and let's go with it. It's probably going to sell. It's number 12 on Amazon right now, so it's selling. Your reaction to what you know already?
My reaction has been, look, this is somebody who was just burdened by indecision and avoiding risk and unable to sort of communicate direct opinions for the entire campaign. So one of the smart things about politicians who lose is when they acknowledge and confront their mistakes. She's clearly doing that with her own style by just ripping the Band-Aid off and just letting it rip. I wrote a piece this morning, but I hope she continues to speak that way, to just give her opinion. If if they made mistakes by not taking risks, which she's clearly said about the whole Pete thing, say that. Say, I was risk adverse and I was wrong. That's her first way back to political redemption if she ever wants to be in the arena again. But I don't know if she does.
You don't? That's interesting.
I can't tell. I wouldn't think that. I just can't tell.
So I want you to hear. Do you know Fayez Shakir?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So here's what he said to Jonathan Karl yesterday. Cut 21.
What do you make all the score settling here? And does she have a future? Or is she?
I doubt it. No. I mean, you have to be somebody with. People are looking for people with conviction and integrity. In time of corruption, economic corruption, political corruption, who's going to have the honesty and integrity to stand up to power? And some of the decisions she's making, she said, I wasn't in control. It wasn't my fault. It was somebody else. I'm like, then who's in control? You don't listen to consultants in the donor class. If you want to step into the political arena, you stand on your own 2 feet, you make tough decisions, and you own them, and you have a vision and a strategy. And I don't think it came through in this book.
So David Axelrod goes on to say, he said, if there's a political strategy here, it's a bad one. There's an awful lot of grievance and finger pointing that really doesn't serve a political agenda. So
that's why I don't know if she's going to run again, because she's not serving a political agenda here. So who knows? But first of all, if you want to sell a book, and she owes it to history, just to be honest with everybody, first of all. And going back to Faz's point, look, the vice president's job isn't to make news. The vice president's job isn't to get ahead of the president. The vice president's job is to be a good number two. For the most part, from what I remember, she did that. And she was extremely loyal to being a number two. Now, when she had control of the campaign, when he bungled it and sort of passed the torch, so to speak, with 107 days left, I would say she erred by being so risk adverse. And she talks about that openly in the book. So I don't know what else you would want from her. I haven't read the whole thing, but I'm glad she's at least being candid. That's a good first step. And like I said, I hope she doesn't walk things back, because she has a tendency to do that in the past.
In her own biography. I mean, Charles Barkley did that years ago, denied what was in his own biography.
Can't do that.
Right.
You have to just double down.
So she had, the way I understand it is 2 critical times. She says that she got a call from President Biden the day of the debate. She's about to go on stage, at which time he says, I heard from my brother that you've been bad-mouthing me. Is it true? And I beat Joe Biden. And I beat Donald Trump every single time. And, one time I had a bad debate. I should still be out there. And she was wondering, why is he calling me right before the debate? What's he up to ask me this stuff that's going to upset me? Now, do you doubt her veracity on that? How do you feel if it is true? How do you feel from the Biden perspective if that's a revelation?
Yeah, it's tough, because I've been hearing so many of these stories. I heard that something before the 4th of July that Jill reamed out Doug Emhoff before they went and did that whole raised their hands and fists in unity thing on the South Lawn a couple of weeks before he dropped out, that she reamed him out for trashing the campaign or something, or accusing him of doing that. I'm bothered by it all. I'm bothered by it. I mean, as a former athlete, a college swimmer, if somebody had done that to me before I was about to, go compete, I'd probably be a little distracted. And quite odd timing. But look, I know a lot of the people around them that can be vindictive. I never thought Biden himself was. So,
well, he was bitter, right? I mean, he was angry.
Sure he was. And I don't know if he had the right to be honest with you. He had the sort of blind loyalty of Democrats, even though they really didn't want to endorse another second term, but they did anyway. And when he wasn't campaigning, when he wasn't doing town halls, when he wasn't doing interviews, people were kind of fed up. And the debate was just the end of the conversation for the rest of the party.
So a couple of things. I'm just going to flip on the other side. I do think that she thinks this book helps her become a more legitimate candidate for 2028. But you know her better because she's young. Nobody thinks she's too old to do anything. So what would be next for her? Try it again. Say it was 107 days, man. Nobody could have done it. But here's why. And I don't think that she anticipated this type of blowback, or maybe she's listening to a strategist who says, you're going to be on the stage with Whitmer. You're going to be on the stage with Shapiro. You're going to be on the stage with Buttigieg, Mark Kelly, and others. Why not take the first shot? And that's what I'm thinking that she might be thinking with a strategist, because she knows she's polling poorly and there's not a clamor to support another run. What do you think about that theory?
I do think there's probably some sort of intention about, like I said earlier, sort of ripping the Band-Aid off, going all in on some of my potential, future opponents if she were to do that. Look, I've kind of always thought she would run again because of how young she is. It's hard to get that bug out of your system. But so far, it just strikes me as some of the color that she is giving, while I give her credit for being honest, some of the color...
It's not helpful.
Some of the color probably won't be helpful to her. So, maybe she's not going to do it in the end. However, what I would say is these news cycles move so fast that I don't think that most politicians will be boxed into anything. I mean, look at Trump. He engages so much, and people really give him the benefit of the doubt when he does change his mind, because it's thoughtful and because he comes out and explains it. I wish more Democrats would do that, but they don't. And I gotta be honest. Look, she demonstrated some poor qualities as a candidate. She has a long way to go before she can fix them. Look, you can't teach candidates to be authentic. It's just something you are comfortable with, showing a part of yourself. She's just not that person. She doesn't want to share herself with us. And look, it's going to be instructive tonight on Mad Al. Like, does she come across stiff, and is she wearing another suit, or is she going to show some color? Is she going to, show like she's having fun and wants to be there? And most importantly, is she going to answer the questions? Like, is she going to answer?
Yeah.
And then elaborate.
Michael, you know her in a casual setting.
Yeah.
Is she direct? Is she totally different in person?
She's different in person. I don't know her that well. She was always very sweet to me, and I know her husband very well. But she is direct, and she asks tough questions, and she asks a lot of her staff. And I don't begrudge her for that. She wants not perfection, but she expects people to have answers when she's being prepped, because she knows it's her butt on the line going out there. So that's why she's considered tougher. But there are a lot of politicians. I've watched her career. She's not comfortable in her own skin. If you can't go on Brian Kilmeade's show, and you can't go on Morning Joe, and you can't go on Bret Baier, and you can't talk to the New York Times, Democrats have it wrong. They think it's all about like attention. Yeah, you don't get attention and you don't get a perception of authenticity, and you don't get the attention unless you make yourself accessible. And if you have principle, if you have confidence in your beliefs, you can go anywhere and talk to anybody.
So you know what they said about Josh Shapiro, and we heard that, and I know it was reported in a few places that when Josh Shapiro sat down one-on-one, he had a few demands. He was asking more questions than he was taking in. And one of the questions, I guess, is in the book is how many rooms are in the vice president's residence, and what else can I be doing? Tell me more responsibility, and this is what I want. And that wasn't a good mix. So when it turns out that she writes in a disparaging way about their interaction, here's his response. Cut 20.
Here's what I can tell you is that I made a point to speak to the people around the president repeatedly about what I saw were worrying signs here in Pennsylvania. And when I felt that they were not sharing that information directly with the president, I went directly to the president, to the former president, and shared that with him when we met at a coffee shop in Harrisburg. I was very direct and very blunt about what I saw were worrying signs electorally about his prospects to be able to win again. So I believe in speaking directly to people when I've got something to say, and that's exactly what I did.
And what he said to the original question was, basically, I haven't read the book, but I made a decision. She had to make a decision. We ultimately made the best decision. I personally would use that as an opportunity to say, look, I didn't enjoy our one-on-one session. I was going to keep that to myself. But if she's going to write disparagingly about it, let me just tell you that at that point, I didn't think she could win. And I didn't want to be part of a losing ticket, and I had a state to run. Something like that. I wanted to see some bluntness back and forth at some point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate that. I think it seems like he's taking your tack that like he was going to keep something private, but since she's going out and writing about it, fine. Yeah. I'll tell you how I felt. It didn't seem like a really good mix. I know everybody. There was a really big push for Josh Shapiro, and I like Josh Shapiro. He's always known to be like particularly ambitious. I think a lot of the Democratic bench will have a similar problem if they can't show. Trump kind of changed the way voters have expectations of their leaders now to be a little bit more candid and plain spoken and direct, and a conversation style that Democratic culture just doesn't allow us to do. It's too evasive and scared of their own shadow. Democrats treat the media like a hazard, not an opportunity. And Trump does something different. And I don't know of a politician who on the Democratic side who's been able to really, sort of demonstrate that yet.
Yeah, I know what I really look forward to right after the midterms. I love the primary process when the stages are big and then people are candid about each other's weaknesses in their own party. And both sides are going to be wide open, Michael. So it's going to be, you're going to think that Ron DeSantis is the worst and J.D. Vance is terrible from other Republicans, and then you're going to get the Democrats, Josh Shapiro and Bashir is overrated and AOC is a socialist, and it's going to be coming from the left. So at that moment, and then soon everyone will get to their sides again. I like when it's jumbled.
Yeah, me too. I mean, as a political junkie, me too. I mean, I saw a lot of it firsthand in our 2020 primary. And you're seeing sort of a macro version of that with the Mamdani, the New York mayoral race. I hope Jeffries and Schumer, I hope they keep it up. I hope they don't bend
so do I.
To the will.
For their own good, for the good of the country.
Yeah, and they had I'm a Hakeem fan. I'm a Democrat. But the time to endorse that guy was right when he won. And so I don't want to hear any of that stuff either. It's because now it will just look like they're bending to the will of the progressives. And I got to tell you, if he wants to be speaker, those people that they potentially could bend to are not the ones who decide majorities. Majorities are made in places like Allentown and Scranton, not in New York City.
Right.
And I don't see a need for him to do endorse.
Michael Larosa, I want to hear more about the swimming career next time we're on. All right. You just snuck that in. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
No problem.
And that's the perspective on the book that comes out tomorrow.
Fox News has learned from a senior Trump administration official and a second source directly involved in the negotiations that Hamas has drafted a personal letter to President Trump asking him to guarantee a 60-day pause in the fighting in exchange for immediately releasing half of the hostages being held inside Gaza. We understand this letter is currently with the Qataris and is expected to be delivered to the president this week. Remember, there are still 48 hostages being held by the terror group inside the Gaza Strip. It's estimated around 20 are believed to be alive. And the negotiations were moving forward. But earlier this month, the Israelis launched airstrikes against Hamas inside the Qatari capital of Doha. They have been stalled ever since. But officials hope this letter will help to jumpstart the conversations and ultimately get President Trump directly involved to try and reach an agreement to get the hostages home and end this war.
And that is Trey Yanks with the original reporting talking about a letter coming from Gaza, the rubble, into Qatar's hands, and I hope President Trump will read it because they feel as though with Netanyahu they're not going to get anywhere and they're a terrorist organization. But I think they understand how much the president has been dealing with and working with the hostage families, American and Israeli. Seth Barron, our guest, New York Post Editorial Board member, author of Last Days of New York. And we'll get to New York, but Seth, I'm just struck by your great column about the reality of what people are going through in Gaza. First off, your reaction to this letter. Do you see it, from what we know and been looking at the last 2 years, getting some traction with the president?
Look, everybody wants this war to end. And Hamas knows what they have to do. They've got to let go of the hostages. And honestly, they have to step down. I mean, they've got to surrender like anybody else. Leave. Anybody else in the world would, give up at this point. I hope this letter does something. I don't know, promising to give up half the hostages seems like, not like good enough, honestly. I mean, at this point, I don't know what they're doing. Just like trying to drag this out, stay in power.
They don't have something to fall back on.
No.
So dying as a martyr.
I mean, that seems to be what they want. And they also have no regard for the lives of their own people, which makes it hard to fight a war against them because they're willing to let 1 million Gazans die.
I mean, do you watch when Hania, I think it was, found out that 2 of his sons were dead and they were celebrating?
Sure.
Did you see that?
Yes.
With his wife? Like, can you believe it? Our kids became martyrs. Isn't that great?
It makes it hard when you're fighting a death cult.
And they are. I would add a couple other things. See, Hamas also, they want to, if they survive, they win. So they know the longer they hold out, the more things happen, like other countries recognize a Palestinian state. Word was they're on the doorstep of another deal when France says, we will recognize a Palestinian state, followed by the UK, Portugal, Canada, now Australia. So that gives them hope that they did the right thing.
Sure. I mean, it rewards them. They're celebrating. They see October 7th as like Independence Day. You know, I think Netanyahu should say, I recognize a free Quebec. I recognize Catalonia as a free country within Spain. I recognize Corsican independence. You know,
a Kurdish state.
Sure, why not?
Let's get a Kurdish state. Yeah. Seth, that's a great move. That's very Trumpian of you. Yeah, you've been in New York too long. So, Seth, you wrote a column yesterday, about what's really going on in Gaza. We got a huge problem with inaccuracy. Yes. Are civilians dying? Yes. Are they ever targeted? I would say no. Are flyers dropped to make sure that civilians don't die? Is life there terrible? Yes. Are they trying to get aid in? Yes. There was a report this morning that they were shooting at, the UN is trying to open different pathways to deliver more food, and they start shooting at the UN trucks coming in.
Not surprising. I mean, Hamas wants complete control, and they also want to sow as much chaos and uncertainty as possible. I mean, people call this a genocide, but Brian, okay, what kind of genocide? In the first year, 45,000 people die. In the second year, 20,000 people die. Most genocides go the other way,
exactly.
Right? Not like tapering off.
Great point. So now we have a situation where now they're proclaiming over 200 journalists have been killed, and you question that. I question that.
Look, a lot of these people, it's hard to say if they're really journalists. I mean, one of them that was lauded as a murdered journalist, he had 3 hostages in his house.
Yeah.
And that's when he got killed. Another one.
It's a great way to set up exclusives, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Another one takes selfies with Yahya Sinwar. Yeah, these guys are very much embedded with Hamas. So whether they're journalists or soldiers, I think becomes, and they want it that way. They want to blur those lines.
And it's important for people not just to accept things blindly. Israelis are killing journalists, and they're preventing aid from getting in. That is the narrative that echoes around the globe that makes the Israelis an unpopular nation instead of the only democracy in the region.
It's they're in a tough spot. They're in a very tough spot. Hamas propaganda backed up by, the UN, by liberal leftists in all the Western nations. They're very much devoted to this narrative.
I want you to hear what Ben Shapiro said yesterday about all these countries like the UK and Canada recognizing a Palestinian state. Cut 28.
Not even remotely. It's exactly the right question. The President of the United States has had absolute moral clarity on this issue. Keir Starmer, Mark Carney, Albanese in Australia have anything but. And you can hear from Keir Starmer there exactly why. Because there is no way to, quote unquote, recognize a state of Palestine, a country that has no borders, no government, and apparently no responsibility for the health and well-being of its own citizens without actually rewarding Hamas, which is currently holding at least 40 hostages, possibly 20 of them alive, and could end the war at any minute simply by surrendering those hostages. So they're handing a giant reward to terrorists in the middle of a war that Israel is fighting against a terror group that Starmer himself says has to be extirpated.
Yeah, I mean, he's totally right. It's a complete mixed message. It's just confusing the issue. They're playing to their, leftist, Islamist factions within their own country, which are growing. And it's nonsense. There's no borders. There's no government.
So let's take a look at the mayor's race in New York. Hakeem Jeffries in talks, still talking to Mandami about endorsing him. We're talking with the Democratic Socialists when pressed on it. He gets so angry when people ask. First off, Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Schumer was asked again. We're still talking. I've known him for a while. You've talking. What are they listening for? And just by delaying, what is that showing you?
Well, it's showing that there's a major rift in the Democrat Party. Look, we talked about this last time. The Democrat Party is a multi-trillion-dollar franchise. They're not just going to roll over and give up to a faction, this hard left faction that doesn't even consider themselves Democrats, the Democratic Socialists. They have a totally different agenda. And it's, Hochul, yes, she bent the knee. She bowed down to Mamdani.
Why'd she do that?
Because she thinks that this way they won't primary her next year.
But Lieutenant Governor is primarying. Delgado, I think his name is. He is to the left of her, and he is primarying, and he did not return the endorsement.
No, he didn't. Look, they see themselves as completely in the catbird seat. They're running the show. So they see no reason. Why should they make any concessions? He already said that he won't defund the police, wink, wink. But they're not going to go any further than that.
So if you are Hakeem Jeffries and you're a leader of your party, let alone New York congressman, and you're Senator Schumer, the leader of your party, let alone a New York senator, and Gillibrand, a New York senator, and you don't endorse the sitting mayor, what do you save? Being labeled a socialist?
Well,
that your Republicans are already running ads about what Democrats stand for.
Well, look, you've got the National Republicans, and you have the National Democrats. Not every Democrat in the country wants to be ruled by a socialist. Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, they're the leaders of the party. They can't just give up and tell all the National Democrats, this is what we're doing now. It'll kill them in fundraising.
What do you think? Does it scare them to see Cuomo and Adams struggle so much and thinking, wait, these are establishment candidates. They're establishment candidates. They have no control of the process. They didn't have the power to do this. They didn't start Mamdani. They didn't groom Mamdani. He came up organically, got his own voters, didn't ask for their money. Most of the money comes from outside the city. And does it scare them, do you think?
They're scared stiff. This guy, and you got to hand it to him, he came in, the DSA, with their organizing, they seized control of this sclerotic, decayed system. And sure, it could happen. If it happened to them, it could happen to you.
So AOC is the big story last week was she's either running for a Senate seats or for president of the United States. She's appearing in places where she wouldn't normally be welcome, like Plattsburgh, New York, to see how they resonate by Canada. Why would a Queens girl want to go to Plattsburgh? People in Plattsburgh don't want to be in Plattsburgh. No offense, but it's very tough, rugged living.
For sure.
So it's really cold. So my feeling is she's absolutely running. What do you think she's going to run for?
You know what? I think that she sees a national profile for herself. Maybe she'll run for Senate, but, if she runs for president, who can blame her? The Democrats have nobody. Their bench is paper thin. Why shouldn't she? I'm not saying that she would be a good president, but as far as the Democrats go, she seems like one of the best things they've got. She's charismatic.
President said she's spunky. I'll give her that, but nobody wants that she's got the wrong philosophy for the country. So very different from Bashir, let's say, of Kentucky. Very different from Shapiro of Pennsylvania. Fetterman's not going to run for president, but very different from him. From Senator Kelly. Sure. Not that they make strong stands and seem like moderates, but people are hoping that they would be moderates because it would appeal to a wider audience. So when they get on the stage together, gloves will be off, correct?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Look, the leftists think we've got to stop moderating ourselves. That's why we lose. They say that's why Kamala lost, because she didn't run hard to the left. That's why Hillary lost. So their attitude is the party needs to go far left, like Mamdani. But New York City is not the country.
But when you look at the country, DEI is not resonating with the country. It might resonate with DEI, but it might resonate in New York City. The woke stuff is not flying at all. They're even trying to straighten out the colleges now. They're under pressure to open up the school of thought. People like the country again. The 1619 Project doesn't roll off the lips of any Democrat that I know of. How different is that, Seth, than we're used to? And if a candidate rolls out and wants to pretend like the 1619 Project, America was built on stolen land on the backs of slaves, if that's going to be their opening line, that might get him a primary win, but it's not going to resonate nationally. It's going to help a J.D. Vance.
It'll be very hard. I think that they're going to push the this affordability line and pretend that they are the ones who care about everybody's pocketbook, but I don't know if that's going to work.
And you got Rahm Emanuel, who thinks that he'll be the middle road. The problem with him, he was a below-average mayor in a very blue city that caters to Democrats.
Same thing with Gavin Newsom.
Terrible governor.
Yeah.
He's done the impossible. He's made California unlivable, and he wants a promotion.
That's why I'm saying AOC is as good a shot as anybody.
Seth Barron, thanks so much. I look forward to your columns in the New York Post. You're on the editorial board. I appreciate you.
Thanks a lot, Brian.